I shouldn't remember her voice the way I do. But it's still there, steady, low, the kind that could cut through even the heaviest silence. That night, I wasn't looking for anything except help. My ankle had swollen from a pickup game I'd pushed too far, and the university clinic was closed. I ended up at the small private office on the edge of town, late, lights dim, just a red open sign buzzing faintly in the window. That's when I saw her. Dr. Morgan. She was older than anyone I usually dealt with, mid-40s maybe, but I couldn't pin her down to an exact number. Her face carried both exhaustion and grace, dark circles beneath her eyes, but also a steadiness, a kind of self-possession that made the air around her feel different. "Come in," she'd said, not with the fake politeness doctors sometimes use, but like she'd been waiting, though of course she hadn't. I sat down awkwardly, my sweat from the game still drying in patches across my shirt. She didn't scold, didn't raise an eyebrow, just crouched in front of me, her fingers brushing the laces of my shoe. "You should have stopped before this got worse," she murmured. Her hand lingered at my ankle longer than it needed to. Just pressure, light, professional, but the warmth of her skin burned through the thin layer of my sock. My throat tightened. I wanted to speak, to joke maybe, but words slid away. She was too close. Her hair, pulled back all day, had loosened strands that framed her face. A faint scent of coffee clung to her. She must have been working for hours. And yet she noticed me. "You play often?" she asked, still focused on my ankle, wrapping gauze around it with precise hands. "Every weekend," I managed. "Sometimes I forget I'm not invincible." That drew her eyes up finally. A sharp, assessing look that softened too quickly, like she'd almost smiled but thought better of it. "You're young. You'll heal faster than most." A pause. "Still, don't push so hard. Bodies keep score." Something about the way she said it made me wonder what scores hers had kept. I found myself studying the lines near her mouth, the subtle way she held her shoulders, tight as though she couldn't quite let them drop. She was beautiful, but not in the effortless way I was used to noticing. Hers was a beauty carved by time, decisions, maybe regrets. And for reasons I couldn't explain, I wanted to keep looking. The room felt too small. The ticking clock above her desk seemed louder than it should have been. I noticed how her hand slowed, not stopping, but not rushing either, as though either of us was in a hurry to end this moment. "Does it hurt?" she asked. "Not as much as it should." Her brows pulled together briefly, then eased. She tightened the last strip of gauze and brushed her fingers over my skin again, almost absent-mindedly. For a second, I thought she might say something else. Her lips parted, then closed again. She tied the bandage neatly, stood, and pressed her palms against her thighs like she needed to steady herself. I should have thanked her, made a joke, ended it there. But I didn't move. Neither did she. And in that silence, heavy and unbroken, she stepped closer, just enough that the edge of her coat brushed my knee. Her voice was barely above a whisper when it finally came. "You shouldn't look at me like that." Her words hit harder than I expected. "You shouldn't look at me like that." It wasn't an accusation, not exactly. More like a warning she gave herself aloud. I looked away, pretending to adjust my sleeve, but the air between us had already shifted. "You're done," she said briskly, her tone sliding back into clinical distance. "Keep it elevated tonight." But she didn't move to the door. Instead, she lingered at her desk, shuffling papers that didn't need shuffling. I caught the smallest tremor in her hand before she set them down again. I wanted to ask if she was all right, but I didn't. Maybe I was afraid of the answer. She exhaled softly and sank into the chair across from me. For the first time, she didn't feel like my doctor. She felt tired. Human. "You ever wonder what it costs to hold everything together?" she asked suddenly. The question startled me. "All the time," I said before I could stop myself. Her gaze lifted to mine, sharp, searching, like she was measuring whether I meant it. Most people would have brushed it off, joked, or changed the subject. I didn't. Because I noticed the fatigue in her shoulders, the way her voice carried weight even when her words didn't. "Long day?" I asked quietly. Her lips twitched, not a smile, exactly, but something close. "Long year." That admission sat between us like a secret neither of us had planned to share. I found myself leaning forward, elbows resting on my knees. "I get it. Maybe not the same way, but yeah." Her eyes softened. And for a second, the age difference, the roles, the setting, all of it, blurred out of focus. She shifted in her seat, and I caught a detail I hadn't before. The ring on her finger was gone. The faint pale band of skin remained, but the metal itself was missing. I shouldn't have asked, but the thought slipped out anyway. "You went through something?" She stilled. Her hands folded tightly in her lap. "Let's just say the people you trust most aren't always the ones who stay." I didn't know what to do with that, so I stayed quiet. But I couldn't stop noticing her, the way she twisted her wrist as if still expecting to feel the ring there, the way her jaw set when she caught herself showing too much. Dangerous. That's what this felt like. Not in a reckless, thrilling sense, but in how much I wanted to know more. The clock on the wall ticked past 9. I should have stood, thanked her, left. Instead, I found myself rooted in the chair, caught by the silence she wasn't breaking. Finally, she rose, walked toward the door, but stopped. Her hand rested on the frame, her back half turned. "You don't have to rush out," she said softly, almost like she regretted saying it. When I stood, I was closer to her than I meant to be. Too close. She reached out, her fingers brushing my arm as if to guide me, or maybe just to feel. The touch lingered. I opened my mouth, words rising, something I shouldn't say, something that would break whatever thin line was left. But I swallowed them. And in that silence, her hand stayed on my arm a moment longer than necessary. Her hand was still on my arm when the sound broke the moment. A phone rang, shrill and sudden, echoing off the sterile walls. She flinched, pulling back quickly as if she'd been caught, though there was no one there to see. She crossed the room in a few quick steps and lifted the receiver. "Dr. Morgan," she said, her voice clipped, controlled. But I caught the faintest tremor under it. I couldn't hear the other side, only the way her jaw tightened as she listened. "No, it's fine. I'll handle it tomorrow." Her tone softened a fraction. "Yes, I'll be all right." When she hung up, she stood still for a moment, her fingers brushing against the edge of the desk like she needed the anchor. "Everything okay?" I asked. She hesitated. "My daughter. She worries too much." Daughter. The word hit me like a reminder of everything I wasn't supposed to forget. Her age, her life outside this room, the gulf between us. "I should go," I said quickly, pushing off the chair. Distance felt safer. But she moved toward me at the same time, and suddenly we were inches apart again. Too close to pretend it didn't matter. Her eyes searched mine, and for the first time, I thought I saw something raw there. Not the doctor who wrapped my ankle, not the polished professional, but a woman standing in the quiet after too many long days, after too much holding it together. "You don't have to go yet," she murmured. I froze. Every instinct told me to leave, to thank her, step out, shut the door before this turned into something we couldn't undo. But I didn't move. My body betrayed me. Instead, I noticed the tiny details that made escape impossible. The way her pulse flickered at her throat, the faint smear of ink on her wrist where her pen must have leaked, the uneven breath she tried to hide. "I'm not sure that's a good idea," I said, my voice low, uneven. Her lips parted slightly, like she might answer, but she didn't. She just let the silence swell between us. And then it happened, small, accidental, but enough to undo me. She reached for the door, meaning to close it, but her fingers grazed mine. Neither of us pulled away fast enough. It was the lightest contact, skin against skin, yet it carried more weight than 1,000 words. I swallowed hard. "We shouldn't." She didn't argue. She didn't agree either. She just looked at me, eyes steady, unflinching, like she was daring me to decide for both of us. The knock at the door shattered it. We both jumped. Her hand flew to the knob, pulling it open just a crack. A janitor peeked in, apologizing for the noise. She nodded quickly, too quickly, assuring him everything was fine. When the door shut again, the silence returned. But this time, it was different. He'd interrupted nothing, and yet everything. Because now, the question wasn't if. It was when. I didn't see her again for a week. I told myself that was for the best. Time to cool off, time to let the weight of that night fade. But when I spotted her outside the clinic, locking up late, all my rehearsed restraint disappeared. "Hey!" I called, more eager than I meant to sound. She turned, surprised. A strand of hair slipped from her bun, and she brushed it back with a tired hand. "What are you doing here?" I held up a paper bag from the cafe across the street. "Thought you might need dinner. You were still working." Her expression flickered, first guarded, then something softer. "That's kind of you." We ended up sitting on the clinic steps, the bag between us. She picked at a sandwich, barely eating, and I watched the way her fingers curled around the bread, more fragile than I'd ever noticed before. "You shouldn't," she said finally, setting the sandwich down. "Shouldn't what?" "Be here. With me. It complicates things." I swallowed. "Does it?" Her eyes snapped to mine. "You know it does." The quiet stretched, but this time it was unbearable. So I broke it. "I keep trying not to think about you. And then I do. I can't stop." Her breath caught, a tiny sound, but enough. She pressed her palms together, like she was praying for the strength not to answer. "You're young," she whispered. "Too young. And me," she trailed off, shaking her head. "You're you," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. "That's all I see." Her laugh was short, almost bitter. "You don't mean that. You don't know what you're asking for." "I'm not asking," I said quietly. "I'm just telling you the truth." That silenced her. The air cooled as the evening deepened, traffic thinning on the road. She looked away, out toward the streetlights, and I watched the tension in her jaw. Finally, she spoke again. "Do you know what it feels like to lose yourself? To give everything you have to other people until you don't even recognize your own reflection?" Her voice shook on the last word. I'd never heard her falter before. It made something inside me tighten. "I don't want you to lose yourself," I said. "I just want to know you. The parts you don't let anyone see." Her eyes found mine again, steady, piercing, but wet at the corners. "And if you see them? What then?" I opened my mouth, but no answer came. Because the truth was, I didn't know. She reached for the bag again, her hand brushing mine, not an accident this time. She didn't move it. The silence swelled until I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. Then she asked, almost inaudible, "Do you even realize what you're doing to me?" And there it was, the question that turned the air electric, with no safe way forward. Her question still rang in my ears. "Do you even realize what you're doing to me?" I didn't know how to answer. My silence must have said too much because she suddenly pulled her hand away, as if burned. The moment fractured. "I can't," she started, then stopped, her voice raw. "This isn't the first time I've been here." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked at me then, really looked, as if daring me to piece it together. "You remind me of someone. Too much." Something cold spread through me. "My husband," she said finally. "When I met him, he was your age. Bright-eyed, reckless, convinced the world would bend for him. And I." Her voice caught, and she shook her head. "I let myself believe in it. Until he left. Until he proved I was just a season for him, not a life." The words hit harder than I expected. Suddenly, I wasn't just me. I was a shadow of someone who'd broken her before. "I'm not him," I said quickly. Too quickly. Her lips pressed together, trembling just slightly. "You can't promise that. You don't even know what promises cost." The sharpness in her tone wasn't anger, it was fear. And I felt it coil inside me too, because she wasn't wrong. I wanted to argue, to swear I wasn't going anywhere, but how could I prove it? I was 22. I still hadn't proven much of anything. Before I could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed across the sidewalk. A young woman, maybe 18, 19, approached, holding a backpack slung over one shoulder. Mom? The word froze me. Dr. Morgan stiffened, straightening so fast it was almost unnatural. Lily, she said, her voice suddenly formal. You're early. Her daughter. I felt my stomach knot. The girl's eyes flicked between us, curious. Suspicious, maybe? I finished studying faster than I thought, Lily said. Then, with the bluntness only teenagers have. Who's this? My throat closed. This is. Dr. Morgan's pause was a blade of silence. A patient. I was just finishing up. Lily tilted her head, unconvinced. At this hour? Go inside, Dr. Morgan said gently, her smile brittle. I'll be right there. Lily lingered a second longer, then nodded and slipped past us into the clinic. The silence she left behind was crushing. Her eyes met mine again, harder now, laced with regret. Do you see? This isn't just about me. It's not simple. It's never simple. I swallowed, fighting the urge to reach for her, to tell her none of that mattered. Because it did. It mattered too much. I don't care, I said finally, my voice breaking despite myself. I don't care if it's complicated, or if you're scared, or if I remind you of him. I see you. That's all. Her face softened, just for a heartbeat. Then she whispered, almost like it hurt. That's exactly why I'm terrified. I stood there long after her daughter disappeared inside, the weight of her whisper pressing into me. That's exactly why I'm terrified. For the first time, I almost turned away. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know if I could carry everything she was asking me not to see. But then she exhaled, shaky, uneven, and in that sound I heard everything she was trying to bury. I shouldn't have said any of this, she murmured, her hand gripping the railing like it was the only thing keeping her upright. I'm supposed to know better. I'm supposed to be stronger. Her voice broke on the last word. Something inside me snapped. Not in anger, but in the way you snap when you realize someone you thought untouchable is just as breakable as you. You don't have to be stronger, I said. My voice came out rough, too honest. Not with me. Her head turned slow, like she didn't believe what she'd heard. I'm not going to run, I added, forcing the words past the tightness in my throat. I know you think I will, that I'll turn into him, or anyone else who let you down. But I won't. I can't promise the whole world, but I can promise I'll stay. Her lips parted, trembling like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. She just stared, eyes glistening, caught between disbelief and something deeper. And for the first time, she let the silence break in her favor. I don't know how to let anyone in anymore, she whispered. The confession cut through me. Because wasn't that the truth we'd both been circling? She wanted me close, but the cost of closeness had burned her before. Then let me start small, I said quietly. Just this moment. Just us. Nothing more. Her breath hitched. For a heartbeat, she stood frozen. Then her hand slipped from the railing and found mine. Not rushed, not dramatic, just careful, trembling, like she was testing the weight of trust again. The world around us blurred, the traffic, the clinic lights, the risk of being seen. None of it mattered as much as the warmth of her palm against mine. You shouldn't do this, she said again, but this time the words had no conviction. Then tell me to go, I whispered back. Her eyes searched mine, desperate, torn. And then, slowly, she shook her head. I didn't kiss her. I didn't pull her against me. I just held her hand tighter, grounding both of us in the choice either of us could take back now. She leaned forward until her forehead rested against my shoulder, her breath shaky against my shirt. And in that fragile, human closeness, I realized this wasn't about curing her fears or erasing her past. It was about being there anyway. About staying. The clinic steps felt different in the morning light. What had been shadows and confessions last night now lay bare in the open. No hiding, no excuses. Just reality. I hadn't expected to see her again so soon, but when I returned for a follow-up on my ankle, there she was, composed, professional, the mask back in place. For a moment, I wondered if she'd pretend nothing had happened. Pretend my hand hadn't held hers, that her forehead hadn't rested against me like she was afraid to let go. But when her eyes met mine, the mask cracked. "Your bandage," she said softly, motioning me inside. I sat down, and she began unwrapping the gauze. Her hands were steady, but I noticed the tiniest catch in her breathing when her fingers brushed my skin. We didn't speak at first. The silence wasn't heavy anymore, it was full. Like both of us were carrying something unspoken, waiting for the other to put it down. Finally, I did. "I meant what I said." Her eyes flicked up. "Which part?" "That I'll stay." Her hands froze on my ankle, and for a long moment neither of us moved. Then she let out a breath, slow and tired, but with a trace of relief. "You don't know what you're signing up for," she whispered. "Maybe not," I admitted. "But I know what it feels like to lose a chance because I was too afraid. And I don't want to live with that." Her lips curved, not quite a smile, but close. "You're too young to talk like that." "Maybe," I said, leaning forward slightly. "Or maybe you've just forgotten how much life you still have left." The words lingered between us, and I saw something shift in her eyes, a recognition, maybe even hope. She finished with the bandage, but instead of pulling away, her hand rested lightly on my leg. A quiet gesture, but enough to tell me she wasn't pushing me out this time. "I don't know where this goes," she admitted. "I don't know if it ends well." "Neither do I," I said honestly. "But I'd rather try than wonder." And that was it. No grand declarations, no dramatic kisses. Just honesty. Flawed, raw, real. When I left the clinic, the weight of last night felt lighter. She wasn't just my doctor anymore. She wasn't just someone older, someone broken, someone afraid. She was her. And she'd let me see the parts no one else did. For the first time, I believed that was enough. Pushpin, did you enjoy the story? Speech Balloon, what kind of stories would you like to hear next?